Well, thank you for joining me for another ITWire.com and Alex on Tech video interview. Today I have with me Craig Jennings. He's the Managing Director of Financial Services at NCR. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Now, NCR is a huge company. You've been operating in Australia for over 100 years, and I guess most people would know you well for the cash registers, given NCR stands for National Cash Registers. But you guys are so much bigger and of course ATMs as well these days, but you're so much bigger in 2018. So can you sort of give us the short version of the NCR picture today?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So kind of the easiest way of thinking of NCR is we're kind of broken into two main areas. So banking, which we're famous for with the cash register history, and really working on a couple of areas from providing ATMs, which everyone sees on the high street and you'll be familiar with, down to kind of hidden things behind the scenes, such as mobile payments or switching, which is effectively the software that runs the bank, or sort of the banking transactions as such, or the security behind that. And then the other side of our business is really focused around commerce. And behind that, we have our hospitality, so providing solutions through to kind of key clients, restaurant providers and so forth. And then we have our retail business. So in Australia, you'll be familiar if you've ever gone into Coles or Woolies and seen the self-checkout machines. They're all NCR, so very, very big in that market. And then we've got some new kind of areas of business. There's a division called Silver, which provides sort of a small to medium business solution. And again, it does everything from take a payment, manage your inventory, and so on. So NCR is kind of bringing all of those technology pieces together and using that to kind of evolve the customer experience, not only for our clients, but also for their clients as such.
And you even do things like 10 million digital boarding passes for planes. I mean, areas that people wouldn't be familiar with NCR and playing a major role.
Absolutely, yeah. We're massive in that space too. I mean, not so much in Australia, but in the US, the boarding passes and things are massive and taking over. And again, you know, different geographies have different strengths. Here in Australia, we've had a massive presence in financial services, a massive dominance in retail. And we're really kind of cracking the hospitality and the silver business now. So it's going gangbusters. It's great.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, you gave the keynote speech at the ATMIA, which is the biannual event for the ATM industry. You know, probably some people probably didn't know such a thing existed, but there it is. And your team's very kindly recorded your keynote for me, and I'll include that video in the article that contains this video interview. But one of your big things was creative connected experiences, which I think you sort of just alluded to a little bit there. But can you sort of just tell us some of the key points that you really like viewers to internalize from that keynote if they don't get a chance to watch it?
Yeah, sure. Kind of the most important part, I'd say, is really when we talk about a connected experience, we talk about as the world evolves and becomes more digital, consumers need to have the flexibility of how they engage, whether it's with a restaurant or with a bank. And effectively, you know, if we take banks and financial services as an example, traditionally, you might have gone into a retail branch to see your banker. You might have wanted a mortgage. You might have wanted a loan or advice. That would have always been filling in paper forms and, you know, sitting down one-on-one or maybe with a couple of experts getting advice and doing applications. Then, about 50 years ago, the ATM came into play and NCR was there at the forefront, putting it into Barclays in London. And, you know, that channel opened up. In more recent times, mobiles opened up and internet banking's opened up. So basically what's happened now is you've got all these different media options for consumers to engage with the financial institution of their choice. And what we're doing is we're actually bringing all of those different media input devices together to make sure that however the consumer actually wishes to interact with the bank of their choice, they can do so through the medium of their choice and also have the security and the safety of doing that. It could be, as an example, using a video app through an application at home to apply for a mortgage. Or it could be starting a transaction for a bank account, so an application maybe for a mortgage on an online website, but then actually wanting to complete that in store. So when you get into the retail outlet or store, as they're now sort of being referred to by the Australian marketplace, they can continue with that transaction. So they don't have to pick up with, you know, and start again. They don't have to go through the same rigorous security tests and so on. The connected experience literally is what it says it is. So replicating the experience for the customer so that it's seamless. So however they engage with their bank is using the same experience in the same way, the same layout, the same menus, and they're not having to kind of relearn what they're doing. And that means for them they can be more efficient with their time. They know that 24/7 they're always connected. and they can, even if they wake up in the middle of the night, they can't sleep, they're worried about, can I afford this house I want to buy? They can get on with it. They can, start the mortgage application. They can make an appointment to see their branch specialist and so on. So it's kind of bringing all that together to make sure that as we all evolve, just as businesses evolving all over the world, the banks evolve and they become very relevant and stay very relevant for their customer base.
You would find a lot of other companies would be calling that digital transformation. The buzzword.
Yeah, absolutely. Digital transformation. And you'll see even now, if you go into some of the branches around the big cities in Australia, you'll see how they're moving away from tellers and they're really moving to self-service. And they're moving to new sorts of technology. For example, NCR has a solution whereby you can have a tablet control. So when you actually walk into that bank, you're greeted by a concierge and they know exactly what's going on with that interaction, and that means they can be a lot more valuable. And also they're not behind glass, they're actually out on the floor. You're able to have more of a kind of a natural conversation with them, and they can actually again be of a lot more service a lot more efficiently for you.
Well, warmer and more personal. I mean, when we're moving towards a cashless society and you don't need the glass walls to protect the cash from the people who are trying to take it with that justification, then you can have that more intimate experience that is more human and friendly.
So to your point, Alex, I mean, cash has still got a long kind of tail, really. I mean, whilst I agree it's on the decline and there are new digital payment methods coming out all the time, and, again, NCR's at the forefront of that technology, 66% of Australians are still using an ATM at least once a month to take out cash. And, to me, that's a message that is still here to stay for some time. So it'd be interesting to see how those trends develop. And again, we'll be tracking it carefully.
Absolutely. And, just talking again about those self-service machines, I mean, in banks, which is, just the other day, I had to change cars. Something was wrong with my car, borrowed one of my brother's cars, and I transferred my NRMA, I transferred the car insurance, and I did it all through the websites. I mean, in years gone by, you would have had to have made painful phone calls. And I mean, now we should all be taking this for granted because that's the reality we now live in. And it was quick and painless. So, many of us have used those ATMs, well, the self-service machines at Coles and Woolies. And I guess, obviously they dispense cash as well. You can use them. But I guess a lot of people might not sort of necessarily think, wow, that's an ATM as well. They just sort of think of it as a automated, grocery cash register sort of system where you do it yourself. I mean, there are issues there too where the machines tell you that you put too many things in the bagging area. when you're trying to put 3 or 4 avocados instead of just one. But given that these have been around for some years now, and actually they're not new anymore as such, what are the other latest advancements and trends in ATMs and in brand transformation?
Sure. So a lot of it is really moving to support digital. So if you look at a traditional ATM, you'd have buttons kind of down the right and left-hand side. Again, everything's moving to touchscreen. And the consumers now expect to have, a widescreen device. They're very used to using iPads and smartphones. And so they expect a larger screen. They expect it to be very self-explanatory. And so the layout's changed. The software's really improved massively. And the speed at which they work is huge. So they expect to be able to do a lot more from that device and equally to link. And so what we're starting to see now is people, as biometric security improves, for example, with the new iPhones, you can authenticate using your fingerprint. So you can actually pre-stage a lot of your transactions. So rather than having to use a keypad for a PIN, and then with some other banks, they've adopted contactless, so you can use contactless, which is even more secure, and that avoids some of the, the security flaws as such, you could say, where the crooks are trying to put skimmers in. Again, we've got solutions for those, but as the market evolves and we offer more and more highly secure solutions, you can pre-stage a lot on your mobile phone. And that means that when you come to your ATM, it could just be literally to pick up the cash, or it could just literally be to verify the opening of an account, or to dock the 2 devices. So that's the first thing we're seeing is, again, a lot more efficiency. And the interaction with video is available. So in Australia, video hasn't taken off on the ATM, but all of the ATMs we sell have the option to enable it. And you could be interacting with your call center straight through the ATM as well. So again, they could take control of the ATM device. They could actually dispense the cash. If they were worried about security, they could ask for more verification. And you could, again, input, open accounts, do everything you want to do. So the idea is everything you would do traditionally with a teller, you can now do on a device. And if you kind of couple that with some of the latest, coin dispense solutions we have and note recyclers and all these other smart devices, really you can go into a branch. You don't need the greater sort of level of real estate that you had before. So again, for the banks, it's cheaper, and you don't have to have the same number of tellers because again, you're able to offer a solution that's more efficient. And so what it really comes down to is, consumer and customer training. You need to make sure that what you're doing is easy to use and that it works perfectly every time. And that if they did have a problem for any reason that, you could address it immediately. So providing you're doing all these things well, then consumer feedback's been excellent, and the banks have really been jumping on board and evolving. And if we look at the US markets, they're further ahead than Australia in terms of how they've really changed what they call a branch to now be a store. You walk in, you can't see a teller, everything's smart devices, and people are happy with that. They're getting used to it.
And this is what people will see from not just the slides. I've seen the slides of your presentation, but and I'm imagining what you're telling me is, a lot of what's in the actual presentation itself. So it would be really valuable for people to watch that if they get a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the other things in the slide, talking about the role of the ATM branch within a digital financial society, the bank branch transformation. So unless you want to say more, I guess you really do talk about that in much more detail in the presentation. And look, I mean, it's something that we're all used to it now. I mean, today is the 20th anniversary of Google Search. Yesterday was the 10th anniversary of Android. I mean, it would be the 11th anniversary of iOS. There are kids born today, then they don't know any other world. It's like when we were growing up. For us, it was running water and electricity. And for our grandparents, it's incredible how the world changes. And something as simple as the humble ATM has really, and everything that goes around that you've spoken about, that has really taken off. Another sort of segue is how your presentation talked about QR codes and digital payments in China. Now, I've seen a lot of that happening firsthand. We even have the Alipays now in Australia and buskers with Alipay QR codes in Australia, and they're targeting, the Chinese tourists, which is incredible because a lot of people still aren't using it. But, as I'm just sort of mentioning, we're starting to see some of this in Australia. But how soon do you think it will be before it's as ubiquitous in Australia as it is in China? Where, as I said, even beggars on the street have. We saw that famous video of the Indian beggar with a card payment machine tapping on the window, but now they're just showing you a QR code. So, what do you think is the path for Australia, and have you used it yourself in your travels around the world?
So no, I'm yet to use it. I've seen lots of demonstrations of it from other people when I've been traveling around Asia, and it's it's a fantastic tool. And again, working with our clients here, they're very keen to understand where NCR sees it. And I still think we're still 5 years away from that. And I don't mean in terms of, having the solutions here. They're very much here already. Yeah. It's just how quickly the banks can actually adopt it and how quickly they can get solutions on the street. And there'll be, new solutions coming through. If you look at Australia, the amount of neobanks, challenger banks, fintechs, everybody's trying to look at how they can do things differently. And NCR is supporting them all on that journey. We're working with the smallest startup to the biggest banks, and it's interesting to see, the different takes on things. But going back to the QR codes, it's a fascinating spin on things. We're certainly, working with Alipay and WeChat and working out and making sure that we have solutions for our clients because, like you say, with beggars, actually going after tourists as well, it's a huge market.
It's
outside of the beggars, I think we get something like 1.7 million. People come through the country each year that have means to pay through those devices. I noticed in a taxi this time for the first time this week, it said we accept Alipay. So, again, you're going to see it more prominently. I think there's a slightly different culture around cash over here. People still, there's a lot of different areas of industry that support cash. For example, those that would accept payment from cash are still happy with that. There's still a transition of the older generation moving away from banking. And I was, speaking with one of the large institutions recently, telling me they still have to support some of the books. So they still have people coming in asking to write their balance in a book, a docket that they've used 50 years ago. So I think it just shows, whilst the banks do want to move in this direction, and all the startups are certainly all over it, the ability to be agile takes time, and that's why I still think we're 5 years away. And I think, again, you can go out and find solutions today, but before you really see it become mainstream.
Yeah, look, it was William Gibson that famously, noted that the future has already been invented and even deployed. It just hasn't been widely distributed yet. And I mean, it's often these things will come from bottom up, not from top down. I mean, for a taxi driver to be offering to accept Alipay payments means he's probably contacted his bank or gotten through some payment mechanism that allows him to accept Alipay to make it easier for the tourists. And you know, you can wait for the big companies to bring it to you, but it's available there right now for people that want it. Now, I also like to talk about the future, ask about the future, you know, I always like to talk about the, you know, a decade into the, you know, like into 2028. If you could, you know, talk about what your thoughts are. I know that people always tell me that if they knew what the future would hold, they'd be on the Bahamas with a pina colada, you know, enjoying their billions. And of course, it's impossible to ignore the fact that, you know, there's this so-called biblical prophecy that talks about needing an embedded chip to partake in society. But, you know, you comment on that how you like, but do you think we'll be making payments by brainwaves? or cryptocurrencies will become the global standard? Will cash completely be gone? What are your thoughts on 2028 and the years leading up to that?
Sure. So, I think, you know, cash is still going to have a part to play. How's that going to evolve? What's it going to mean? I don't think we're going to see the same market share. I think, you know, there's always going to be a requirement for cash. Now, whether that cash becomes cryptocurrency, who knows? But, you know, if you look at how hard that's, you know, really having in terms of the time to stand up, in terms of legislation, how they actually manage it, the banks aren't keen, others aren't keen. So I think, you know, whilst technology will come through, it might not necessarily be adopted that way. We're certainly seeing, if you look at other kind of faster moving areas of society, you could look at, again, for our lessons and what we're seeing in retail, look at Amazon and the frictionless checkout. Again, we're working on and we support. Look at Walmart and the fact everyone's ordering everything on their apps, and they're literally in the US now. They don't have big stores. They're moving to, you know, just drive-through collection points. And again, Australia's got that already, where we go to lockers and we pick up our shopping. And I think you're going to see a similar thing happen with small businesses and cash, and NCR's working around solutions and how we service that for our small business customers. But I think you are going to get various different payment devices. You are going to be able to, you know, mobile is going to be the kind of key device, and that trend will continue. You are going to see more smart watches and more smart wear, and people are going to be using it. I think biometrics is already pretty prominent, and that's just going to stay around, you know, the fingerprint. I don't think it's going to go to iris. I do think you'll see more with facial recognition come through. And I think you'll see a lot of that linked to AI tech. And I know, you know, for us at NCR, we're investing very heavily in AI, because there's a lot you can do in that space. And again, to really assist the customers on automated journeys, and the same with the banks. So I think, you know, the main things you're going to see there is kind of the level of disruption, as we've seen with other industries. This is going to happen in financial services. And we're seeing it already with the QR codes, the Alipays, the WeChats. You're going to continue to see that as new fintechs come through. And you're going to start seeing more competition. And competition's good. You know, that's good for us. Especially if I take me as a consumer, I want to have more choice about who I borrow money from. And, you know, how I engage with my bank. And it's going to be the same in every industry. Everyone's getting disrupted. Everything's moving. So we're going to have AI, we're going to have more wearables, we're going to have more mobiles, we're going to have a lot more interaction between each other. So I think you're going to see a lot more social media connected to payments as well. But we're kind of at an inflection point now, and the next, you know, 12 to 18 months is going to be very exciting to see where we end up. But I do think, especially even if you look at kind of laws around New South Wales, don't say that just because I'm in Sydney currently, you know, the RBA are still looking at how do we support cash? What's going to happen with the utility model? Are the banks going to get together and provide solutions? Are they going to continue to run their own ATM fleets? How's that going to be managed? So, you know, everyone's asking the same questions.
And it's not
I thought this would have a hoverboard, but, you know, I don't yet. So
I was going to say, it's also not just about where you can borrow money from, but it's the choice in where you want to store your money. You know, you want to make sure that it's safe, and, you know, there'll be traditional banks, neobanks, cryptocurrencies, all those different things. And as you say, the next 12 to 18 months and beyond we're living in very exciting times. Now, I always like to...
It's a great time.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you know, they often talk about how the Chinese talk about may you live in interesting times. Well, I think we're in exciting times and interesting as well. So I'd just like to ask if you could please share the best piece of advice that you've ever received to help you get where you are today.
Sure. I think the best advice I've always been given is treat people as you want to be treated yourself. And I think that's what NCR does well as well. We very much listen to our customers. So we go and survey our customers every 3 to 6 months, and we make sure we listen to them. We do the same with their customers. And that allows us to make sure we're always at the forefront of change, and we're always leading that evolution. You know, NCR's been around for a long time now, and the reason we've survived that length of time is because constantly evolving. It's been the same for me in my career. I've constantly evolved, and I've focused on IT. I've always found it interesting and had a passion for it. And NCR's a great place to be. You know, we're always inventing. We've got a massive R&D focus, massive R&D budget. And so, you know, if you were to go to one of our centres of excellence and customer experience centres in somewhere like Atlanta or Dundee in Scotland, the sort of stuff you see behind closed doors that I know we've got coming out in the future is so exciting. It's a great place to be. And so I think, you know, that's the lesson, is really make sure if you're always learning and treat people with respect, you can't go far wrong.
Sounds like good advice to me. So, what's your final message for IT Wire viewers and readers, and to your current and future customers, partners, and investors?
So I think, you know, the main message I'd say is this is the time to be involved in the payment space, and to really, you know, get involved, go and see what people are talking about, go and attend industry events, go and read the research papers and read, you know, articles from yourself and others. But essentially, it's a time where the market's full of opportunity. Whenever there's disruption and change, there comes a massive opportunity. And there is one for NCR, and there is for our customers and our partners. We can go out and we can make massive changes now, and those changes are going to benefit every single consumer. You know, we've got a generation that's coming through in our millennials that they can use apps, you know, until they're blue in the face. But you know, we're seeing more millennials go into branches because they don't know how to, you know, get a loan, or what a loan means, or what a mortgage means. Because again, that's where the missing education piece is. And that just shows me there's always gaps. So even when we think, the technology is great, everyone adopts it, there's always different slants on things, different plays, different opportunities. And so I would just encourage everybody to watch this space very carefully. Definitely watch NCR very carefully, because we've got some fantastic stuff coming out constantly at the moment, and if I can be of any, you know, help to anyone, I'd love to hear from them. So,
well, look,
thank you very much.
I just thought of one last thing, and that is that, you know, schools are often criticised for not teaching financial literacy. You know, they're supposed to be teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic, as they say, but you know, the schools don't ever teach people how to, you know, save money, have a business, you know, like you say, take out a loan. I mean, maybe NCR needs to turn some of those bank branches into weekend, you know, 1 hour financial classes for kids, or you need to work with global education bodies to insert some financial literacy into the system, because ultimately financial literacy is the area that you operate in. And it just came to me that, you know, maybe that's something you should, even though it's not really your remit, it kind of is. Why not? So anyway, thank you very much. Yeah.
And you're right, and that's a big part of, you know, if you have a look at the ATM-IA piece, it was all around, we've got to have this corporate responsibility, and all of us owe this to the generations coming through. It's one thing to, you know, enable an app or to enable payment in a new way, but if we're not encouraging responsible, you know, lending of money and responsible, you know, saving of money and providing for the future, then we're not sort of setting ourselves up to fail, because eventually it all comes crashing down around us. And that's kind of the lesson was with cash, you go to your wallet, when you're out of cash, you're out of cash. It's pretty easy to see. You don't have any other options. But with an app, it's different. You kind of have this feeling of, I'm invincible, it lasts forever, and it isn't until it runs out. And you have to go and ask mum and dad. And then because, again, it's intangible, you never look and feel it, it's kind of hard to get your head around. And so you're absolutely right. That's something that we need to be doing as a society. It's just really looking after those kids coming through.
Well, it was only in this week's paper that there was a study about how children, and you would have heard this from your own childhood growing up, but kids think the money comes out of the wall or it comes from the supermarket, and they don't know. And of course, these days, the news articles yesterday were talking about how kids were not being given any, not being required to do any work just to receive pocket money. So if you can't get some sort of thing happening through the education system, then there's always the NCR app for kids and the NCR app for millennials and the NCR app for adults to understand and learn about money. And, you know, maybe you with your partners can do something. Otherwise, I'll have to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's certainly something that's needed, Alex. So, yeah, one of us should definitely do that one.
Well, Craig Jennings, MD of Financial Services at MCR, thank you so much for your time. And I hope to talk to you again in the future.
Thank you, Alex. Pleasure connecting with you. I look forward to speaking with you soon. All the best.
Thank you so much.